before when I do it again. Ye is controversial if it was a person. Somebody like Ye, I believe, is a firm and strong believer in all press is good press, all attention is good attention, and he's proven decade to decade that statement about him is true. You know what I mean? The guy is pretty much bulletproof, man. So, you know what I mean? If you haven't been following the latest on Ye, delving into the behind the scenes of what's happening with his deal with Gap, also with Adidas, and man, I just think it's at a point where, you know, these companies are really trying to extract and take advantage of all the things he done brought to these companies, designs, ideas, bringing in millions of dollars of profit and taking these companies and brands where they were to higher heights. You know what I mean? I think it's interesting to see. You know what I mean? Somebody come from the music world and now is in this mogul designer seeking ownership, $1 billion. I think Ye is the epitome of somebody that's just trying to fulfill their reason of being here. And I think him as a visionary is definitely something he's filled the shoes of, and why he's such a, just unique mind.
The spotlight has followed the artist formerly known as Kanye West for nearly 20 years, at times illuminating him as one of the greatest creatives of all time. But the light of scrutiny also shines just as brightly.
So social media, you feel, is that more hurtful or beneficial to you?
That's one of my favorite questions this interview. I mean, we can use a car to rush somebody to the hospital, or we could use a car and accidentally hit somebody while we're rushing somebody to the hospital. So it's all in how we use it.
Something he says he's also had to do in order to successfully co-parent with his ex-wife, Kim Kardashian.
This is the mother of my children, and I apologize for any stress that I have caused, even in my frustration, because God calls me to be stronger. But also, ain't nobody else finna be causing no stress either. I need this person to be least stressed and the best sound mind and as calm as possible to be able to raise those children.
Do you feel you have a voice as you're co-parenting now?
I do have a voice, but I had to fight for it. And it's just little nuances where there was a parallel to what was happening at Gap, what was happening at Adidas, and what was happening in my home. It was all a kind of a disregard for the voice of something that I co-created. I co-created the children. I co-created the product at Adidas. I co-created the product at Gap. There's a parallel, and the parallel does touch on discrimination.
I think, man, for the most part, when it comes to Ye, he's just been living his life as an open book. You know what I mean? Me in my adult years and young adult years definitely understand that more now than somebody that was growing up listening and seeing Ye in front of my eyes. Like, it was just like, man, this dude is, a lot of times just looked at it, it's like, man, this dude is just wilding out. He's crazy, like he's a wild card. And I think a lot of these things still could be said and somewhat even true to a certain degree. But I think with a more mature perspective on some of the things that you view of him doing, you can come away with seeing why he's doing some of these things and why he's so anal about some of this stuff. You know what I mean? Like, especially looking at that documentary on Netflix, I think really showed a lot of why Ye is wired the way he is, especially when you see the relationship with his mom and just how important kids is, because it's the relationship him and his mom had. You know what I mean? So now you see that play out in his children's life and his him as a father, which I just think, man, to see Ye as a kid, as an artist, a CEO, a designer, a performer, a producer, a label executive, it's just always been a certain intention on everything he's been doing. This is the purpose of why I'm doing whatever that is. You know what I mean? Whether if it was producing, if it was trying to be the best in music, trying to be the best designer, trying to be, the best innovator. Like, he's always been looking up to people like Steve Jobs and Walt Disney. These are always been names that he's strived to be next to, you know what I mean, and likes of. And when you look at those people, I think the main thing is just the way that they thought, you know what I mean, they mind, the way they see things, the way they saw things much more in a bigger picture than just like what's in front of now, like looking ahead. And I think that's where Ye gets a lot of his inspiration in the way of him doing things, you know what I mean? Just trying to look into the next generation, legacy, you know what I mean? You definitely see that with his kids and just building schools, all that type of stuff speaks to that, you know what I mean?
He recently turned to the tool of Twitter to post the termination of his Yeezy brand collaboration with Gap as he remains in an ongoing legal battle with Adidas.
How do you move forward now in the fashion industry when they're saying you can't even not only show Yeezy products, but anything bearing that likeness?
Oh, we got some new lawyers.
He now plans to sell the Yeezy brand directly to consumers, something he argued about with radio host Sway back in 2013.
Or why don't you empower yourself and don't need them and do it yourself?
How, Sway?
Take a few steps back to go.
You ain't got the answers, man.
So Sway, almost 10 years ago, said, man, why don't you do it on your own? Was he right?
You know what? I will go ahead and say Sway had the answer. I know people are gonna be like, no.
Wow, that's crazy, man. I mean, just to see that, I think that happened in 2013, and we in 2022 now, so that's literally about 10 years ago. Back when you go look at the interview and when he was doing it in real time, you kind of knew what Ye was trying to communicate by saying like the funds and whether it was the relationships or, the platforms to distribute the brand of Yeezy to the degree that he wanted to, saying that he lacked those resources. And I felt that, but also in the same breath, you feel what Sway was saying by saying like, look, you can empower yourself. You can take what you got and distribute it, cut the middleman out, basically. You know what I mean? Basically, you're the designer, the makers of the product, but also being the distributors and the retail stores of it. And that sounds, like in a perfect world, like how things supposed to go. But a lot of times when you're talking about market shares and having the availability to get your shoes or your product to as accessible as, Gap, Nike, Adidas, Reeboks, it's a limited amount of space, you know what I mean? I think Ye now for sure, like I don't know if it would have been as successful if he did that back then. It probably would have been a long road to where he's gotten to now, but I definitely feel like he's definitely in position to like, yo, I'm gonna cut the middleman out. We gonna sell Yeezy directly from us to the customer. You know what I mean? Of course, him continue to being the great artist, the great designer, that all helped. And I think the fact that him splitting from these companies and seeing what these companies have been doing to him and how much of the identity of Yeezy has been like imputed into them, when he takes that away from them, the people are not going to stay with those brands like the Gaps and Adidas. They're going to go wherever Yeezy is going to be selling and buying it straight from him. You know what I mean? A lot of these companies and a lot of these fashion like lines and things like that, I definitely see the influence of Yeezy with just the simplicity in clothing now. You know what I mean? Whether if it's the hoodies, the essential hoodies, where it's just like, these pastel colors. It's a lot of times cream or like a certain beige. And just the one-worded, words on there. Like, I feel like all that came from Yeezy. You know what I mean? Like, when you go look at the early models of Yeezy, going to Adidas, you started to really see the simplicity of, like, high fashion design that Ye used to be on to, like, more so, like, let's just make this for the casual, everyday, affordable client or customer. And I think that's something he's really trying to push with just also being, like, this person that's thinking about, the livelihood of the average Joe. You know what I mean? Like, I think for him, it's way past just fashion. I think fashion is just a common language that a lot of people understand. And, you know, it's like, it's one of the basics that you need. You know what I mean? You need clothes on your back. And if you can make clothes affordable, you know, you make school affordable, you make all these necessary things affordable. You know, you can build a community that will not be in poverty because the things that they need that are necessary is at an affordable rate. It's not skyrocket. It's not, you know, everybody can afford the J's or everybody can afford, you know, Tom Ford. No pun, but yeah, I mean, everybody can afford that stuff. And I think that's ultimately what Ye's goal is, holistically. Of course, now him being a Christian and really professing that, I think that really is another motor that's driving all of that. And I think it's a pleasure to see, man. It really is. Ye has one of those stories holistically that is just something to sit back and marvel at. Saying he's a great musician is marginalizing everything he's accomplishing and where you see his vision at. You know what I mean? Like, this guy, he really does have, like, you know, when you sit back and say, Ye running for president, it's like, you know, cats could kiki and joke around. But I think a lot of how he's trying to maneuver and go forward in life is from that type of place. Like, from that type of place of holistically, how can I make this world, you know, better than what it was the day before yesterday or yesterday. You know what I mean? I think that's how he's moving. And of course, with him, it starts with his family. So I think more so as of late, I've enjoyed that side of Ye more so than the music, even though I love his efforts always in music. Down to 2 actually was crazy. Ye is just everywhere. You know what I mean? Like, speaking of the music, like, even with just technology, you know what I mean? Like, with the Yeezy player, you know what I mean? And just shoes, fashion, schools, like, he's just really trying to put all his might into, you know, really trying to making this world a better place. And I think you only can commend that, man. So I think that's, you know, like my latest thoughts on Ye. Definitely will go down as, you know, one of the greatest individual overall in history, man. So did it before and I do it again.